Hey guys, Ken Smith Fishing. Something a little less controversial this video than the last one. If you haven't seen it, I posted up a video talking about the payouts in professional tournament fishing and got a lot of feedback from it. Mostly good feedback, a little bit of negative feedback, but you know what? That's the beauty of the United States of America. We can all give our opinions. So this video, as have a lot of my recent videos, has spun out of a prior video I did. So when we posted the questions 2 months ago, I posted a video because I knew we were going to interview Todd Driscoll, the Texas Park and Wildlife field biologist, fisheries biologist, excuse me. If you haven't seen that video, there is a series of those videos on my website where we interview Todd and talk about a wide range of topics. But I had posted a video about a month prior to those videos getting filmed where I asked guys to give me questions for Todd. And one of the questions that came in for Todd was, and I'm going to paraphrase this question a little bit, was have we given up on trying to grow a new world record, or is there a reduction in the efforts to grow a huge fish in Texas? And the answer to that is certainly not. From talking with Todd a little bit, he didn't have a lot to say about it because he's not directly involved in the Shira Lone Star Lunker program. But obviously, you heard him mention in the videos, they actually, the Lone Star Lunker fry go to specific sets of lakes where they feel like they have the ability to grow giant fish. And I'm going to screw up the name again, but you know, I think right now Nakanish, I apologize if that's not exactly the right name, but the lake there outside of Lufkin is certainly one of those lakes. It's a smaller lake, but as Todd said, they've done everything they possibly can to grow monsters in that lake. But the video, so that conversation with Todd and that question from my viewer, excuse me, Sammy's here under me, so I'm loving on Sammy too. It got me thinking about what's happened to big bass fishing. So I'm going to post up some graphics here, which I find very interesting as I went through this process. And by the way, I draw no conclusions today out of all this work. It's just interesting to me, and I thought it might be interesting to you guys, and I would really be interested in your feedback to your thoughts to that. So as always, post the feedback below, and it's a good running commentary about this. I should also say, there was a time I was absolutely 100% trying to catch a giant fish. My fishing was more about trying to catch a giant than tournament fishing. Now I club fished and I fished some other stuff, but back in the late 80s it was all about trying to catch a giant. I spent most of my time on fork, and fortunately I did catch a couple of giants. I caught an 1197, I caught a 10-2, and I actually caught a 13-1. Matter of fact, I'm going to try to sneak a picture right here of that fish. It's not a great picture, but that's what I got, which is unfortunate to have caught that fish. And actually, the 1197, all I have of that picture is a Polaroid. We were very concerned, as we still are, at getting those fish alive back in the water. On Rayburn, I've caught really only two what I would consider giant fish. I caught one on a Cinco one day that I did not weigh. It was in practice. Never actually brought the fish out of the water, but she was a giant. She was a double-digit fish. I had another one in a ditch in the back of Harvey, same thing. In practice, pulled her up. I actually boated that fish, didn't have a scale with me, immediately returned her to the water. And I hooked a fish on a rattle trap one day, again in practice. That was, I think, the biggest fish I've ever had on. I truly believe it was bigger than my 13-pounder. And I had boats around me and was just letting her pull drag and trying to keep her from jumping, and she eventually pulled off. And I caught a 9-pounder that day, and this fish dwarfed that 9-pounder. I had an 8 and a 9 that day. It was an amazing March bluebird, 37-degree, 30-mile-an-hour northeast wind day when those fish got on top of the grass and were just munching on that trap. So anyway, here's what so back to the graphics. So the first thing, and so some of this kind of little bit of research I did sort of dispelled some beliefs that I had previously about when and where to catch big fish, or more specifically when. I always assumed to catch a gigantic fish, and I think this goes back to Mark Stevenson's fish, which I may be wrong, which is okay, but in my head I always thought Mark caught that fish in November or December. So I always assumed to catch a giant fish, you had to catch them pre-spawn when they were just as fat as they could be from the fall feed up. But what we see here, so I went and did a little bit of research, the top 50 fish ever caught in the state of Texas. And so the state of Texas record is a little over 18 pounds caught by Barry St. Clair, who I believe works for Texas Park and Wildlife now. Again, as I recall, caught on a minnow crappie fishing, so he wasn't trying to catch that fish. But this is the breakdown of those top 50 fish. So a couple of things that jump out at me here. Quite obviously, if you want to go try to catch a giant fish, March is the time to do it. It's when those fish have come shallow. It's when they're most accessible to us. It's when they're thinking about spawning. They're probably less wary than they are any other part of the year. So 30% of all the 30% of the top 50, so 15 of the top 50 fish ever caught in the state of Texas were caught in March. 22% caught in February, 14% caught in January. Then there were 5 fish caught in April and May each. A couple of fish caught in September. The only month that there's never been a Sierra Lone Star Lunker caught, or excuse me, a top 50 fish caught in Texas is June. But what was really interesting to me was, and I think I remember the number right, there was a fish over 16 pounds caught in May that was a post-spawn fish. Can't imagine how big that fish might have been had it been a pre-spawn fish. But I just thought this was interesting, kind of getting a sense of when these fish are caught, and if I or one of you guys decided you really wanted to go try to catch a giant, when you might go try to do that. So the next slide I broke down a little bit more, and this is what I posed the question to Todd. There was a period of time, and it's pretty easy to conclude why this is once you look at the data, when the most of those top 50 fish got caught. So from 1986 to 1992, 1/2 of all those fish were caught. Now I did not break this down by decade because the numbers didn't exactly fall by decade, but check these numbers out. From 86 to 92, 3.57 of the top 50 fish per year were caught. That crushes any other period. The next closest period is 93 to 99 with 1 fish per year. So 3.5 times as many fish. Now, by the way, so none of the top 50 fish were caught prior to 1985 except one, and that was a 15-pounder caught from a private lake. That also surprised me. I had always thought you couldn't make that top 50 list, and I guess it's according to who's publishing the list, if you weren't on public waters. But what you're going to see here in a minute is several of these fish have actually come from private waters. So as I broke this down, a couple of things jumped out at me. Of those fish, of those 25 fish, 19 of them came out of Fork. And so the question I posed to Todd was kind of why was that? And he said, well, there is a phenomenon, I think he called it the new lake phenomenon, surprise, surprise, that there's a period of time when a lake floods. So remember, Fork was impounded in 80, and if I remember my numbers right, was full in 85. And there's a period through there, and this happened on Richland Chambers too. I remember distinctly catching a lot of giant fish on Chambers. Matter of fact, I got an 11-60 in a tournament out of Chambers. Over that period of time, that water has so much material in it. I don't know how else to say it, but there's so many decay. There's live bushes, there's decaying bushes, forage fish. It's just when a lake is supercharged. Those brood fish grow huge. Of course, if you remember, there were brood fish in Fork that were F1, so first generation Florida strain fish. So Fork was quite truly on fire, and that's the period of time when I fished the lake as well. Now my giant fish, by the way, came in 96, but you know, pretty close in behind this period of time. A couple of other things here I thought. So there's 27 of those top 50 fish are over 16 pounds. 18 of those, so fully 66%, 2 out of 3 of those fish were caught during that period. Interestingly though, if you go up there kind of top left in the pie chart, 2010 to 2019, although the catch rate is still pretty slow at a little bit less than 1 fish per year, check it out that 5 of those 27 fish, so fully 18%, have been caught basically in the last 10 years. that tells me that overall we still have some really, really healthy fisheries, and Park and Wildlife is still doing a great job at growing some really, really giant fish out there. I don't think anything else really jumped out at me from this slide. So I went then, so now that I kind of know when those fish were caught, I wanted to know where those fish were caught. And where those fish were caught, not surprisingly, 30 of the 50 were caught out of Fork. So 60% of our top 50 fish ever caught were caught out of Fork. What surprised me is a couple of things. There's really not any other lake that has put a, and remember, Fork's not that big. Fork's 30-ish thousand acres, I think, with Toledo being, with Rayburn being over 100 and Toledo being even bigger, like 120, 130,000 acres. It surprises me that Fork still dominates that big fish culture. I have to believe part of that is the slot limit. I mean, you just have to make that assumption. I think now to be an over the slot keeper at Fork, it's got to be 24 inches. By the way, the world record's only 29 inches. So a lot of fish get caught and don't even get to go get weighed. They just get immediately released back in that lake. Whereas a guy on Rayburn or Toledo, and I would probably be one of those guys. If I caught a 12-pounder, I'd pull it out of the water and want to go weigh it, even if it was only 23 inches long, just to see what that fish weighed. Surprisingly, most of the giant fish in the world get caught in kind of deep, clear reservoirs. Caddo is exactly the opposite of that. Caddo is the only natural lake in Texas, although it does have a dam. I believe Caddo almost certainly is a Red River, good gosh, I can't think of what you call it, but a lake off of the Red River. But 4 of those top 50 fish, so 8%, more than any lake other than Fork, have come out of Caddo, and a couple of those have come recently. So it really surprises me. I think some of that may be lack of pressure on Caddo. One of the lakes that surprises me that's not on this list at all is Lake of the Pines. Rayburn has one of these fish on this lake, on this list. Toledo has no fish on this list. 3 of them came out of private lakes. The only other lake that has multiple fish in the top 50 is Amstead. So I just thought that was really interesting. Top 16 fish caught since 2000. Interestingly now, Fork only has, well, they have 6, so still they're a third of those fish. But Caddo has, and that should say percent, 18.75% of those fish. And then 7 other lakes have 1 fish each. So again, if you want to catch a fish, you need to be going Fork to Caddo, back and forth. By the way, congratulations. I saw a guy caught a 13-pounder this past week on Holbrook, I think if I remember right. Holbrook or Hawkins, but I believe it's Holbrook, which is another little tiny East Texas lake that has those Florida genes in it. So again, Caddo just surprises me it's on this list. I have fished Caddo exactly 1 time in my life, had a great time, didn't go back. It's a long way out there, but I think I want to make a trip to Caddo. I want to go check it out. When I was there, by the way, I didn't have GPS and I got lost and it scared the crud out of me. If you've never seen the movie Southern Comfort, it's a good movie. It was actually filmed on Caddo. Okay, so that then led me to the top 25 fish. My curiosity was the period of time on this. So look at this. This boggled my mind. Top 25 fish ever caught. World record's a little bit over 22 pounds. From, let's see here, from 1920 to 1929, 1 fish. From 1930 to 1935, 1 fish. Then from 73 to 85, 3 fish. Look what happens in that same period that happened in the state of Texas. 86 to 91, 11 fish. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find a top 50 list, so this is top 25. But look again, the catch rate from 86 to 91 is substantially higher than any other period of time. So when I posed that to Todd, he was like, okay, that's a really interesting statistic. We don't know why that is. And then you see 92 to 99, we're back down to a quarter of a fish, 2 fish over that period of time, so 0.25 fish per year. And then 2000 to 2009, again, it ramps back up. You get, again, the second highest period, 0.7 fish per year, and that's the year that that Kurita young man out of Japan catches a 22. It's actually the world record, but it had to be 2 ounces bigger to be recognized as the official world record. He was 1 ounce bigger, so they have tied him with George Perry's record out of Georgia. So again, I can't explain this. As Todd and I talked about it, we wondered, we have gotten so much better as fishermen at catching fish, right? Electronics, amazing baits that look more lifelike than they've ever looked before, fluorocarbon line, better rods, better reels, trolling motors that'll hold you in one place much more quietly than they ever would before. We have gotten so much better. I wonder if we catch fish at a higher frequency rate when they're 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 pounds and stress them that they don't survive to 17 or 18 pounds. Maybe the fish have gotten smarter, Bigfoot's catching them, I don't know. But it just really struck me, and I'd love to hear you guys' feedback on this. It struck me so odd that Texas's highest catch per year for the top 50 fish for us, and the world record top 25 fish, the catch rate is higher by far in any other time from 1986 to 1991. It also makes me wonder, and I posted this question this morning to Bobby Barrick, who's caught a 1450 out of a California lake in a tournament actually, and has many fish over 10 pounds. You've heard me talk about Bobby before. I wonder if the quest to catch the next world record has slowed down in California. Guys, this will be posted on a couple of the California fishing forums. I would love to hear you guys' feedback out of this. Now, I know there's been the big debacle with Mike Long recently with catching him snagging fish, which is unfortunate, makes it everything he's ever accomplished look very suspicious. And I'm not a judge or a jury on that case, but I would love to hear our California guys' feedback in the comments below. Your thoughts on that? Are there still guys? Is Jed Dickerson still out there, every week on Lake Dixon trying to catch, in the period of time when those fish would be there, the next world record? I don't know the answer to that. There's not much online about those guys. I looked for a couple of those guys, including the guy who caught Dottie the first time that accidentally snagged the fish when they weighed her at 24, 25 pounds. And released her without officially weighing her. I can't find any information about what those guys are doing today, so I'd be really curious about that. So again, this is just graphically showing you what we just talked about. So from over 65-year period of time, in the top 50 in the world, only 2 of those fish were caught. In the top 50, in the top 50 in Texas. In the top 25 in the world, 25% of those fish, I think about 4 or 5 of those fish were caught. And then including the largest fish ever caught in Florida. Interestingly, there was another giant caught in Florida, and I wish I could remember this guy's name. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put it in here right here. This guy caught a fish in Kissimmee in Florida. I hope I pronounced that right. That he weighed in his boat at over 19 pounds, which would have blown the Florida record away. And the fish wouldn't fit in his live well. He didn't want to stress the fish and he released it. That is so cool. So that fish may still be swimming around out there and may be a new state or a world record, who knows. But I just thought that was so cool that he did that. But again, you see here the catch rates for both Texas and the world are so much higher from 86 to 91 and in any other period of time. And these are in percents. So you can see both of those over 40% in that basically 6-year window. I don't have an answer for that. I'd love to hear you guys' feedback on that. And then just out of curiosity, 2 more things. Where were the top 25 fish of all times caught? Passaic Lake, Passaic? I can't say that very well. And guys, forgive me if I get these wrong, but I believe this is Northern California. 8 of the top 25 fish ever caught out of Passaic, oh well, I'm saying it wrong. 32%. That lake's only 2,200 acres. Dixon Lake, 3 of the 25, with a little bit of an asterisk there because the fish Dottie was caught twice and counts twice in those 3. So 2 different fish, 3 different weights in Lake Dixon. That lake is 72 acres. I believe that lake's outside of San Diego. Miramar, 5 of 25, so 20% of the largest fish ever caught, 162 acres. And then 9 other lakes, and I'm going to read them to you. So Biwa in Japan, Big Fish Lake in Florida. That fish was back, I think, in the 30s. Montgomery, where George Perry caught the world record. Mission Viejo, Marina, California. Wolford, California. Another Japanese lake, I'm going to try Ikura, maybe. Hodges in California, and then one giant out of Mexico, out of Bacharach. I probably said that wrong as well. So you see down there on the left, I made that note, which is pretty amazing to me. 16 of the largest weighed fish, 15 fish, again because of the dotty fish, ever caught were caught from a lake from 3 lakes with a grand total surface acres of 2,469 acres. That's amazing. Now, the one thing most of those California lakes have in common is trout stocking. There's no doubt about it. That's like me just walking around eating Snickers bars as often as I want to every day. I would weigh 500 pounds before very long. So there's a specific reason. By the way, Biwa also is full of trout in Japan. I did not look up the other Japanese lake that's on there. In the Mexico lake, I think that lake's full of tilapia. I believe that's correct, just from a little bit of research I did. So kind of the same thing again. Big, super high protein, easy to catch forage. Why these fish get so doggone big. By the way, back up here real quick. The one thing that did surprise me on this one was not a single fish out of falcon. I can't explain it. When we went down there, we caught, the tournament, the Bass Champs Championship we fished, we had 10 fish that weighed 61 pounds. And when we drove away from the lake, Dickie, so a 6.1 pound average, Dickie said, "Do you think we got to check?" And I said, "No way." And an hour later, we got a message that we got to check, and we laughed because at 61 pounds with 10 fish, we didn't get a check. It took 10 fish that weighed 95 pounds to get a check. And it's legit. Those guys weighed in at 10:30 the first day. The second day, they put a cameraman in the boat with them, and you see them pull up on the spot, and the cameraman shuffling the camera because the guy's got a 10-pounder on the first cast, and they were done at 10 the next day. I don't know how there hasn't been a teener, or not a teener, how we haven't had a top 50 fish caught out of falcon. That's got to be just a matter of time, because it's similar to Amstead, and there's been a couple of fish out of Amstead. Okay, so again, that's that. Now, the last thing I thought was really curious or really interesting to look into was what's the biggest fish caught in every single state? So here you got it. There's been 2 states, Georgia and California, George Perry's fish, and then of course the multiple fish we've seen out of California where there's been a fish over 20 pounds caught. Next biggest is Texas, followed by Mississippi, followed by Florida. Now again, Florida very well maybe should have been 3rd on this list because of that 19-ish pounder. He measured that fish and it took a picture. It seems extremely legit that fish was 19 pounds. And to me, even more legit that he released it, that he's a true sportsman. He wanted to get that fish back live in the lake. So let's see here. To cross 10 pounds, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, looks like 8 states that do not have a 10-pound or bigger record largemouth. By the way, if you want to get a state record, I don't know where you do it, but in Alaska, the state record largemouth bass is recorded at half a pound. Guys, somebody break that record. Come on, somebody go to Alaska and catch a 1-pounder and break the state record. I imagine there's money in that from one of the line sponsors. But you see here, and again, Wyoming, North Dakota, Minnesota, so that very far northwest, other than California, you don't see really huge lakes. You see really huge fish. Even up there in Oregon, looks like it's only maybe a 12-pound fish. Let's see, where's Washington State on here? Washington State's got one in the low teens in there. To get a 15 plus pound fish, you got to go to Tennessee, Massachusetts. Wow, there's a big fish there. New Mexico, North Carolina, Louisiana, South Carolina, Virginia, Arkansas. Arkansas, big fish, 16 pounder. Arizona, Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, Texas, California, Georgia. There you go. That's the rundown of the states with the largest fish ever weighed. I just thought this was interesting stuff as I went through this. It kind of motivated me to try to go catch another big one this next spring. So I may spend a little bit of time on camera trying to catch a giant. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm always trying to catch a giant, but to really catch one of these big fish, you got to get somewhere. John Hope wrote a lot about this. You got to get on a funnel point, you got to get still, you got to get quiet, you got to wait for that fish to come to you. You cannot stalk these fish. These fish will come to you. Most of those California fish, by the way, are getting caught off the nest in really deep water. Because those fish, now a lot of them do get caught on those big swim baits, but you know, if you look at the records, a lot of those fish were plucked off the nest because they're seen and they're caught that way, and that's when those guys really focus on that. So love to hear your big fish stories in the comments. Love to hear your thoughts on why that period from 86 to 91 was so special in the world of catching a giant fish, and I'd love to hear your personal best down below. So thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I know this was a little bit different, but I found it interesting, and I hope you did too. We'll see you guys soon. Hey guys, quick addendum here. So I've had the same question twice in the last 24 hours through email. By the way, my email is kensmithfishing@outlook.com right there. Two different guys have asked me, hey Ken, I got kids who are going to start on their, one was a junior high and one's a high school team this year. Both pretty big kids, and that makes a difference, so we can address this in a different video. But neither one really have the equipment to be on the fishing team, or they need to upgrade their equipment. So the question was, and paraphrasing, but basically from both these guys, what are the 3 rods that I need to buy for my kids to be competitive in tournament bass fishing, or what are the rods? And I think you can do it with 3. One of the guys, Jerry, is a golfer, so we talked a little bit in email about golf. And so basically I'm going to give you a 3-wood, a 7-iron, and a putter, okay, basically. And I'm going to give you 1, 2, and 3A and 3B. So number 1 rod, and this is, by the way, so spend your money right now on the rods, okay? Let's buy a basic, I looked up to make sure I got his sitting fan. Let's buy a basic mock reel. It's an $80 reel. It's a fabulous reel for the money. For now, let's spend our money on our rods, okay? We'll upgrade the reels later. So rod number 1 is the Super Duty 3. Now, this is only for a bigger kid. I'm gonna say 5'8" and bigger, maybe even 5'10" and bigger. But it is a, and by the way, all these rods, super versatile rods. So the Super Duty 3, it can be used, I use it for an A-rig rod. I use it for my deep flipping in the bushes rod, not my grass fishing rod, but my deep flipping in the bushes rod. And then a lot of other kind of open water applications, including throwing a Carolina rig on it at times, especially if I'm throwing a bigger hook, heavier gear. So Super Duty 3 rod. By the way, all 3 reels, let's buy 6:4 to 1 ratios, okay? Later on, we'll get a faster reel for flipping and a slower reel for cranking if they continue down the fishing path. But for right now, let's buy 3 really versatile setups. Ideally, I would love for you to buy the extra wide spool reels. So that's the, and Luz has just caught a series called the wide spool reels. That's a great reel. I use it in a lot of applications, but it's a couple of $100 reel. So on the budget, let's just stick with the mock reels. Okay, rod number 2. And this is a rod you guys have seen me throwing quite a bit. This is the Magnum jig rod. This is a fabulous rod. This is the rod you saw me when I broke my frog rod, broke the tip off my frog rod. I picked this rod up and I've been using it a lot. What I like about it is it's short between the butt and the reel, so it's real easy to work that frog underhanded. But this rod has plenty of backbone for close flipping. So if you're flipping up in bushes or with overhanging trees or around docks, this rod, super versatile rod. You can do a whole bunch of stuff with this rod. Rod 3A, East Texas rod. 3A East Texas rod, and I know it's going to be upside down. See if I can turn this around here. Magnum Bass Rod 3. You've heard Dickie talk about it. You've heard me talk about it. If you're going to be in East Texas, you're going to need, and by the way, I'm putting the model numbers here, you're going to need a trap rod for the grass. Hey Sam. So Magnum Bass Rod 3, ideal if you're around grass. 3B, so if you're not going to be fishing around grass, if you're in North Texas, Central Texas, clear water, a lot of fishing around the rocks, I'm going to have you instead buy the Perfect Crankbait Rod, okay? The Perfect Crankbait Rod is a 7.3. It is what we call a slower tipped rod. It's easy to throw a square bill on. Again, it's got a short distance between the butt and the reel, so it's easy to work jerk baits. You could even throw a spinnerbait on this rod. It's a nice, versatile rod. Those three rods, 123A or 123B, are ideal rods. Stella, that's a Stella drive-through. Okay, we've cleared the dogs. So those are your three starter rods. We'll talk more. We'll talk more about other rods in upcoming videos as we upgrade. Again, you cannot play top level junior high or high school golf with 3 golf clubs. You probably are going to have a hard time competing in junior high or high school fishing with 3 rods and 3 reels. But it's a great start, especially if you're on a budget. Spend your money on your rods. We'll buy some better reels later on. Right, Stella? Yeah. We'll buy some better reels later on, and now, by the way, all 4 of those rods are super high-end rods. They're great rods. I would steer you to the mock rods if you really are on a budget, but for me, spend the money on the rods, and we'll buy some better reels later on. So hopefully that's helpful. Again, thanks for the emails, guys. KenSmithFishing@outlook.com. And Stella, say bye. Stella says bye. Why the long face?